So welcome back to Redefining AI, the tech podcast. On behalf of Squirro, the enterprise GenAI platform, I'm your host, Lauren Hawker Zafer. Now, in this episode today, we will be focusing on the tech industry, experiencing the industry and the art of growing successful tech businesses. Now, joining me to do this is Andrew Amann, CEO and co-founder of NineTwoThree Studio, an AI agency that has crafted innovative products for renowned brands like Consumer Reports, Simply Safe and Experian. Now, under Andrew's leadership, NineTwoThree has not only won multiple awards, but has also earned recognition as a top US consultancy agency and secured a spot on the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies list 4 times. With a whopping 18 years of experience advising companies on digital transformation, Andrew has a keen understanding of how to maximize investment in digital business models. Now, today, he'll share insights on leveraging AI and tech to drive success in the rapidly evolving digital landscape. So it's great to have you here. Welcome, Andrew. Welcome to Redefining AI.
Thanks for having me, Lauren. It's a pleasure to be here.
I asked you before, but it's always good. So our audience like to find out, where are you based? Where are you joining us from today?
I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts, where it's been a red flag warning for the past few months. And so we've had forest fires for quite a while here because it's been so dry.
Oh my goodness, so it's disrupted probably everything around you.
Yes, very disruptive. Yes, that's for sure.
And you're back with us for an exciting conversation then.
Yes, I'm ready to go.
So Boston, Massachusetts, I've been once. Maybe some of our listeners have as well. Do you think it's had an impact on who you are today, where you've come from, where you've ended up? Have you always lived in Boston, or maybe you've lived somewhere else?
Yeah, I was born, I think I've lived in 8 houses before I graduated high school. So New York and Massachusetts were the 2 states, at least. I didn't travel too far away from there. I do think Boston is relatively home for me, just from a sports standpoint, from a culture standpoint, and from a value standpoint. I love skiing. I love, the warm weather. I love the beaches. So I think it's a good combination. It's got great seasons. From an entrepreneurship standpoint, I really have found outside of Boston to be more advantageous to my growth than inside of Boston. Even though we have all the schools, I think Boston has a tougher time getting together like they do in San Francisco.
So do you visit San Francisco quite a lot for inspiration or business or anything that's part of the journey where you stand just now? I mean, you've got 3 patents to your name. You've built multiple apps and businesses. Where do you get your sort of burning desire to drive forward?
Yeah, I think we all have followed San Francisco startups and San Francisco type companies, Silicon Valley for the last 20 years. And so we all have the stories that we have read about or read books about. But for me specifically, it didn't really click to me that I was a true entrepreneur until I started to go into other CEO groups, Rhodium and Hampton being 2 of my favorite, where I met other people like me. And I think before that, I was isolated and kind of lonely trying to figure out who I was or what I was in the world. And I'd never had affirmations. I never had people around me that truly believed in what we did. They just knew that I was on a path that was different than everybody else. So it was really the CEO groups and finding others, the 1% of the 1%, and traveling the world with them, going on retreats, going on group trips, and then realizing, oh, I am an entrepreneur because these are other entrepreneurs too.
It's a very interesting statement. I mean, the thing that I've taken away from that is that, to quote you, meet others like me. What would you say is like you in that identification with the sort of collation of what you would classify as a CEO group?
Yeah, there's always a Third Eye Blind song that comes to mind. It's the Misfit song when he talks about just being out of place. And it's an older song, but I just think being a misfit is somebody that doesn't think normally. And we take incredibly high risks. So our risk tolerance is high. Our aptitude to fail is like inevitable. So we know that it's coming. It's just a matter of when. And we also see the world a bit differently. We understand that things are just a process or a problem to be solved. We don't kind of take the world for what it is, and we don't take the problems at face value. We truly look at the world a different way. And so when you're talking to just, I call them humans or normal people instead of entrepreneurs, like the regular folk, they are more inclined to go through their daily lives and be interested in what happens from day to day. As an entrepreneur, when you're speaking with other entrepreneurs, you're talking about the future, how things can change, how we can be a part of that change, or more importantly, just how we can put ourselves in a place to succeed for a 10-year future self. And we really have control and the aptitude to figure out like what we want to do and then accelerate and do that thing and then stand around a bunch of people that can celebrate with you. And it wasn't until I had met these other CEOs, it was the first time that I really had heard affirmations with these other CEO groups, people that would celebrate each other, people that would say, I know that was a really hard 10-year journey and you look like an overnight success, but truly what's happening right now is the work that you put in for those 10 years compounded to what people are realizing is the success. And I think the other entrepreneurs are the only other people I met that truly understand that work.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, this specific aptitude, it could also be argued in the sense of like components that contribute to who we are. Would you say that there's certain innate qualities that you've also identified in other CEOs, especially within the tech sphere? Because I do believe, obviously, working in a startup, a scale up myself, where I've witnessed firsthand for the past 4.5 years, our own CEO and the passion, the integrity, the sort of drive that he has. Is it innate? Is that aptitude nurtured? Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
I think we were mentioning Boston has 4 seasons, and I think it's really important for an entrepreneur to understand there's also 4 seasons. I went through the Gary Vaynerchuk hustle season for 6-7 years of my life, and I had to meet other hustlers at the time to know that I wasn't abnormal and to know that it is possible. And if you don't believe it's possible, you're not going to go through that wall 100 times. But you graduate and you get a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more, I guess, resistance, a bunch more scars. And you realize you need to go into the second season, which is the learning phase. And that's when you try to figure out what you can do next and how you can build a business that's going to last. And that's, the Jim Collins books, the Seth Godin books of how to market and how to create a brand for yourself. And you start graduating into, I would say, more classic entrepreneurship type traits of leading a business and running a good team. But the third and fourth season is the one that you're speaking of now, is when you speak to other CEOs that are grounded, that have been successful, that have already had those scars and said, look, enough's enough. I just want to build a good business and be happy. That third and fourth season is even harder to find. I always say there's thousands of books of how to become an entrepreneur. But once you are an entrepreneur and you're like in the grind and you've done it for 10 years, there's very few books that teach you how to be happy as an entrepreneur. And there's very few people that have really figured that out. They either continue to hustle or they have figured out, like I hope I have, how to have a holistic entrepreneurship lifestyle. And that was the narrowness of meeting more people until I found that holistic entrepreneur that actually could teach me how to balance between life and hustle.
Yeah, because I think that's the two-edged sword that a lot of CEOs in this particular industry face. I mean, Can you balance the whole lifestyle with the hustle? Because as you spoke about, it's about getting those war wounds, those scars.
Yeah.
It's about being able to build a business that will stand its stead and actually become successful. So you've been, you're someone with 18 years of experience that's advised a lot of other companies on digital transformation. So you've obviously had a few impactful moments that are probably what you could classify as scars. What have you witnessed then? What has contributed to your own sort of stories of success and failure?
Yeah, it's the journey that matters. And I think the journey is what I truly have craved, is being part of something. And so when you're searching for being part of something, you go down the wrong paths. I call them black swan events, but I've had 3 black swan events while running a business in my life. One being in 2019 when we sold our first business and trying to figure out and navigate what it's like to work for other people and what it's like to have your business change that you've built. We built our first business for 5 years before we sold it. And seeing it in somebody else's hands is a big change. And then trying to get out of that and trying to change your life to do something that you truly want was my first event. And there's a whole story there. But the 2 other Black Swan events was when my team, we had 25 people in Ukraine when the Ukraine war started. And that was the bread and butter. Like they were the heartbeat of our organization and they were the reason why we were successful. And so watching them go through what they did for that first week when Russia unfortunately attacked them, we had to figure out how to be solvent as a company, but also be human and support them. And as a leader, those are the types of things I remember, is how the team responds, how we responded, and how we promised to pay them and support them through everything that they were going through. And then the last one was government issued. The government of the United States told us in 2022 and 2023 taxes that our expenses no longer counted in this thing called Section 179. And they basically wiped away millions of dollars of expenses, creating $1 million tax bill for us. So we had to figure out how to navigate that. And we didn't have the money, obviously, to pay $1 million taxes to the government. And so we had to go through this event of how do we come up with the cash? How do we keep the company solvent? But those are the things that if you have a group, and the third one, I had the groups, I had the CEO partners to talk this through. But the first two, I was on my own and I was unhealthy. I was, ghost. I wasn't working on myself. I wasn't, good to the family. And that was a period in which I had to navigate it myself. And I wish I had help. So it's like you go through the scars, but you also look back and realize if only you had found help earlier or CEOs earlier that had gone through it, I would have at least had guidance.
And is it the guidance that's important? Because obviously in working, and now if we step back a little bit, you run an AI agency. We can talk about what the AI agency is in theory and practicality, but in working as that role in enabling others and also enabling yourself in those journeys that you went through, how can you identify which idea is the one that you should pursue? I mean, that must always be a little bit difficult as well.
Yeah. So we built 14 startups. And so we've gone from 0 to 1 14 times and 11 of them have failed. So we know what it's like to build a product in the wrong space for the wrong reasons firsthand. And with AI products, for the last 8 years, we've had teams solving solutions in AI. But like you said, for 18 years, I've been doing digital transformations. My first few years was taking manufacturing shops and bringing them to the 21st century with computers, basically cloud computing or anything that was computer related instead of spreadsheets or documents on a shop floor. So I've gone through the iterations of learning from different industries. And I think now, I mean, I haven't quoted exactly, but I know it's between 150 and 200 projects that we've done as a company that I've been at the forefront of figuring out what's the business return, what's the return on investment, and why are you building this technology? So with that number of at-bats, when somebody new comes to me and says, hey, I got an idea or I need AI for my company, I can look back now and quantify why the AI will solve their problem. But I can also qualitatively show them, this is the result you're going to get if you work with us. And we do this thing called business feasibility and technical feasibility. It's a 2x2 grid like every other consultant on the internet. And whatever appears in the top right, that is technically feasible to do. And then more importantly, the business feasibility has the actual option to extract the knowledge or to extract the data into something we have access to. Those two things, if they appear in the top right of the 2x2 grid, it is something that I can quantitatively say, this is going to be your return on investment, and then look at the actual product itself and say, this is the amount of work that's required to do it. With all this experience, I know that it's going to be successful. And I would say our last dozen, or I would even say 24 products have had a return on investment that's months, not years. And with AI, that's very abnormal. In my 18 years of doing this, I've never seen returns that fast. And we're seeing 7-figure returns on the day we release an AI product. And it's only $200,000-$300,000 of investment. So these types of advancements are really coming fast, and we're really accelerating the type of quality of products we can put out there. But the type of actual results we're getting is just off the charts.
Mm-hmm. So many interesting questions that I want to ask around that, but let's focus on one. So the one that I want to ask is obviously the feasibility, like from both a business perspective and a technical perspective. This must have changed in the whole development and the demand and the newness of generative AI as well, in like a more established and expanded sense. What have you seen there in terms of the excitement and new possibilities, and especially in the ROI? I mean, there's a lot of sort of not only players, but also big fours, etc. Can you really measure the ROI concretely at this stage in those sort of projects?
Yeah, so with custom code, it's a little bit of a different approach than with product. Product always has the challenge of being restrictive of the custom features, where custom code is providing a solution directly to that client. And then when you go to another client, you're providing a custom solution for them. And when you do it that way, digital transformation is about taking a workflow, not an operation. And when you take a workflow is a series of steps that people are going through to execute a task. There's a great book called The Goal, and it talks about relieving bottlenecks. So if you have inputs and outputs across an organization, at some point, there's a reason why the output is only a certain number. So if you were to create widgets and you had 100 widgets coming into your shop and you only had 10 widgets going out every single day, well, there's a reason why 90 of them are being stocked. And you're, of course, creating inventory and WIP and manufacturing terms. But the idea of digital transformation is relieving the bottlenecks and relieving the points in which people are seeing that stress factor and that resistance so that you can flow all 100 widgets through the shop floor. And it works with any technology business. There is always a place in which you can be more efficient to output more. And so with AI, to specifically answer your question, the efficiency of the shop is determined on the people and the amount of time they spend in the organization and the amount of work they can do in their specific task. You have experts, you have rookies, and you have everybody in between. With AI, we can create a workflow where everybody is an expert and they have the same knowledge and access to the same information as quickly as possible, and they can work as the best workers across the entire department. Once we create that in any department, we're starting to create more revenue per employee. So those employees are not being fired. Those employees are not going anywhere. The company is just not hiring in the future. And you can see this across Microsoft, Facebook, and Google. Like their revenue per employee in the last 6 months has been almost a quarter higher than it has ever been in the past. So it's not just us that's realizing these AI benefits. Everyone from a pizza shop all the way to Microsoft is able to take a department and prove efficiencies with AI. And we just have the visibility when you talk to us from the very beginning of what that return on investment is going to be and why you should start today. If they believe us, it works. And we have, 24 case studies to prove it out.
So I suppose that people listening to that might think, yeah, I actually agree with that. I do see the benefit and the opportunities that are offered by the implementation of various different AI products in various different sectors. If you go back to look at what you expressed around the fact that 11 of your startups failed, and someone listening to this has identified also that they have a similar entrepreneurial spirit, what do you think is important when someone's starting an AI startup in the AI space based on your learnings?
Yeah. So why every one of those companies failed is we didn't have enough people to buy the product. Sounds very obvious, but if I was to start over on every single one of those, I wish I started with a community with 1,000 people in it. And I tested first to see if that product had merit inside of that industry. And so, a perfect scenario was right during COVID, we had the incredible idea of helping dogs that were getting injured, ACL injuries. And we were the first. We had the availability to do it over Zoom. There is a new government law that allowed, because of COVID, 32 out of the 50 states to do veterinarian PT over Zoom. We were the first product in the space to offer that, right? As soon as that government law came out, a week later, we were on the market. It's perfect timing. It's perfect product fit. There's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that have this issue with their pets, of pets getting injured and needing physical therapy. The problem was we didn't have the market. We didn't have the audience. I wish I had built the Facebook group of 100,000 people, 200,000 people talking and chatting about what happens when their dog gets injured. I wish I had a Reddit group and a Reddit subchannel of people searching and asking, when my dog gets injured, what do I do? I wish I had partnered with all the hospitals that were around the world, around the United States at least, that when a dog goes into the vet during COVID and the vet says, I can't, see your dog physically because I'm not allowed to be in contact. I wish I had a hotline that they could call me and I could give them 50% of the profits by them doing the training with me. So why I'm saying all this is that if you're building an AI startup, nothing changes from the fact that you need the people to sell it to. You need the product and you need the audience. And today it's easier to build an audience than ever. Seth Godin just did a poll on high school kids and said, what are the 5 things you want to be when you grow up? I remember, Lauren, when you and I were kids, it was like, I want to go to space. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. Because that's what our parents did. You know what Seth Godin's results are? Kim Kardashian's assistant, TikTok influencer, YouTube star. So it's changed. Like, people know how to build audiences. And so if you're starting a product, the audience comes first. And then you put that product into the audience to watch it grow.
So, and I'm not saying that was the case in all of your 11 failures, but how long did it then take you? Was it all of those 11 where you found that you were repeating this mistake? And why do you think it is a repeatable and very easy mistake to fall into?
Because you think the product is a great idea and you think people will always buy it. And so we start with the product first, and we start with trying to sell that product with the features that we think are amazing. And as a product studio, we have the people and the resources to build those products. So we kept thinking to put them into the marketplace and then figuring it out later. So it was called the venture studio, but the idea is you hire a CEO to then sell that idea. So we had 5 CEOs at one point running 5 of the 14 startups. And again, it's that muscle of trying to figure out how many of these need to be successful to kind of return the entire pool. But even I've talked to people that are running $100 million venture studios, and they say that the odds are 27 to 1. You need 27 startups to recover the funds of the one startup will recover the funds of the 26 failures. And so even the experts that even know all of these stats and work in Silicon Valley and have unlimited funds from venture capitalists, they still have 26 failures. So I don't think it was specifically our fault that we didn't go there. But I think if I just wanted to make $1 million and I wanted to have a startup that I went from 0 to 1 to do that, I would spend the first 2 years of my life building that community and not trying to shoot for the moon and get a $100 million company. I would just shoot for an audience that was interested in the product I sold so that I can extract $1 million of profit in the future.
So your main message today as we end this conversation is don't go product first.
I would say don't go product first, but then we watch what? Notebook LM. That's engineering first. They didn't even release it. I mean, they have Google as their backer, but Notebook LM has 1 million users and they don't even have a single marketing dollar associated to it. ChatGPT is the fastest growing product in the world, and I don't think they've marketed that besides word of mouth. So I think there's two different worlds. There's the shoot for the moon and the big products that Google and ChatGPT are putting out. You can try to compete against that. Or you can be a holistic entrepreneur, shoot for a lifestyle, try to go for your $1 million, but do that in a very sustainable way that takes, maybe 5-10 years, but build that audience first to make sure that when the product hits, it's the right product for the right people.
Great advice. So it's been very enjoyable having you on the show today, Andrew. I want to thank you, and I hope that you've enjoyed the conversation yourself.
This was great. Thanks for having me, Lauren. And yeah, great questions. I appreciate the guidance throughout this talk.
And I'd like to thank everyone else who's joined us today for this conversation. If you'd like to share it, then share it with your friend, your mom, your dad. Thank you.